You're listening to the Friends Talking Nerdy Podcast Network.
Friends Talking Nerdy. If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends Talking Nerdy.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim Jousma coming at you alone again this week. The Reverend is still on vacation with his stepkids, and from all the reports that the Reverend has been giving me, the Reverend has been having the time of his life, so that has definitely made me very happy. But that leaves us to today's episode here. So what I wanted to do was kind of dip into the playlist handbook once again. Playlist for solo episodes seemed to be the most straightforward thing I can do to get some content out there without totally feeling like a fool when I talk alone. So what I wanted to do was talk about my 10 favorite tracks from the year I was born, 1976. I know what was the number one song in the country the day I was born, and that's Play That Funky Music, White Boy from Wild Cherry. But that song is not on this list here, but I did go through a list of all the albums that were released in 1976 that is available on Wikipedia, and went through and found some of my favorite songs from that year. But before we go off into that, I'll give you a little update on my week right here, because it has been rather interesting animal-wise. Back house sitting here, and we had a situation when I moved back in. I think I mentioned it on the show before about raccoons. Well, the owner of the house did find a pest control place that is able to trap the raccoons and then essentially relocate them to a more appropriate area for them, because this is a suburban area. So at the beginning of my house sitting journey here, one day I wake up and I hear this chirping out in the backyard, and I go out there, and lo and behold, it is one of the... I don't want to call them baby raccoons, because they weren't exactly babies, but they weren't exactly grown-up raccoons yet. You could tell that there was a mother with two younger raccoons here, and one of the younger ones got caught in the cage. So that was interesting, because the mother and the other child came around, and they allowed me to get to a certain point without like hissing or growling or anything like that, which I thought was rather interesting. Again, being that this is a suburban neighborhood, it's kind of understandable that they would be somewhat okay with humans. That is not to say I think of myself as a raccoon whisperer now, because I am not. Basically I treated it like I would an unknown dog. If you keep enough distance and show that you're not going to be a threat, generally an animal that size especially is not going to do much to really harm you, because like a raccoon could have hurt me, it could have gone to the hospital or something like that, but it would have to work really hard to kill me, so it wants to fight with me as much as I want to fight with it. But anyway, we got one raccoon that was caught and brought to raccoon prison, as I called it, to the chickens. But again, it was just relocating to a more appropriate area. And then a couple days later, voila, kid number 2 gets caught. And that was an interesting one as well, because again, the second raccoon actually allowed me to get close enough to drop some orange slices on the ground next to the trap. The trap was not, the raccoon was not going to be able to escape it by any means, but it did have enough space to like reach a paw to grab stuff. And the raccoon actually grabbed a couple orange slices out of tosses, so I felt good doing that. And it was kind of sad too, because when the second raccoon got trapped, Mama Raccoon actually came and just kind of did her best to she was like trying to pull the cage, like over the back wall, and she couldn't do that. And ultimately when the second raccoon was taken away by pest control, she ended up, sniffing around the backyard area for like a good hour. And that in a way was kind of sad to watch because, it's like, if there was a way I could have communicated with her that, hey, if you just get in one of those cages in the back there, you can go with your kids and you'll be able to see them soon enough. I'm sure she would have thanked me and did that. But, she's a raccoon, I'm a human, and all I could do is just sit there and feel bad. But also, the owner of the place here did the right thing, did the absolute right thing, which I totally respect, because the owner has to worry about her chickens. The chickens here are, not only pets, but a food source as well for the eggs that they provide. And that's, if they get killed and eaten by the raccoons, that's, food that's not going to be in the fridge. And that's money out the door as well that, would have to be spent to be able to get new chickens or whatever, which is not the end of the world. It's not like a chicken costs $50,000 each, but you get my point, so ultimately, the right thing was done here, and there are still some traps in the backyard, and my hope is that one of these days the mother will be hungry, sniff around, see that there are some apples in there, and then go into the cage herself, and then somewhere down the line she could be reunited with her kids. But that's, I don't know, maybe I've watched too many Disney movies as well. Maybe the mother's already gone on and forgotten about the kids. What do I know? But the show at hand here, let's talk about my 10 favorite songs from the year I was born, 1976. Now the first one is from Kiss. It is from their album Destroyer. It's the opening track, Detroit Rock City. Now, Kiss has definitely gone out of their way to intentionally kill whatever musical legacy that they had, and they didn't have a big one to begin with. They have gone out of their way to, milk the idea of Kiss so dry that once that band finally does retire, the two original members that are still in it, they finally retire. It's like it goes away, and people will never talk about it again, which is kind of sad. Because at least with the original members in the band, you had some great music like Detroit Rock City. Destroyer is one of the albums that even people that don't like Kiss will generally say, but you could still put this one on. It's a fun album. Definitely one you should check out. The second track here, this was their debut album. Their debut album hit in 1976. It was a self-titled album from a band you may have heard of called the Ramones. Blitzkrieg Bop. I mean, that it goes without saying. I mean, that song has been played a lot over the years, admittedly so, but it still really holds up well. And, like the older I get, the more I'm appreciating artists that can bring emotion, that can bring a lot to the music while the music being very simple. And with punk music, they don't use many chords. It's not music for virtuosos. But think of all of the emotions people have had listening to their music over the years, and it started with this album. So definitely one you want to check out. The third track here, we got to go a little country. If it's right, like I said, I'm not the biggest country fan in the world myself, I won't lie, but, when it's good, it's good. And there was a compilation album, you can call it, that was called Wanted the Outlaws. And it was Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings' wife, Jessie Coulter, and one other person. I see the album cover right now on my iPad, but it's really small, so I can't see the name of all the artists on there. But this is A Good-Hearted Woman. It's classic Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings song. On any sort of greatest hits albums from either of those artists, this song is on there. So, talking more about it, it does seem kind of silly, but it is also very much a classic. So I definitely had to put that on my list. The next one here is from one Mr. David Bowie. This is from his Station to Station album, one of the albums in his Berlin trilogy. And it's the song TVC 15, a unique little track. When It's not one of his most well-known songs. It's not like Ziggy Stardust or Fame or anything like that, but it's still a fun little groovy piece. Like when I picture it, I just imagine him in like a zoot suit or something like that, walking into a club in the 20s, singing this song, and it's just a fun little groovy number. So I had to put it on my list here. The next one is from a band that I've spoken of many, many times on the show here and proclaimed that, this band is the band that got me interested in the type of music that I like. It is the Rolling Stones. In 1976, they released their album Black and Blue, and the lead track off of that was the next song on the list, Hot Stuff. I was just thinking about it earlier, and Hot Stuff is very much a posturing song, and if I had to compare it to anything, I would say it's like the 70s male version of Wet Ass Pussy. It's all about a guy thinking he's hot shit, and, he's going to go into the club and everybody's going to think he's hot stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I've certainly done that many times to where, like, you go on a date with somebody and you want to, pump yourself up or whatever, and you're going to put on, kind of a song to kind of embody the emotions you want to bring. And if you want to attract sexy people into your life, you want to feel sexy yourself, and sometimes music can do that. And this song, Hot Stuff, even though it's silly, even though it's goofy, can do that. It's done it for me, and what does that say about me? I don't know, but hey, I go to therapy. All right, the next track here is from Led Zeppelin. When I saw the track was put out in 76, I had to talk about it because this reminds me of kind of like what people today that listen to music via streaming are missing out. Now, I'm not talking about like unknown artists or anything like that. I'm talking about kind of missing out on discovering new music from artists you love. Like, when I grew up, I didn't have access to everything the Rolling Stones ever produced at the snap of a finger. I had to go out and buy their albums individually and discover, the songs that I liked, and discover that not all albums are made the same, but also too, there are times where an artist, especially an artist that's been around for as long as like a Led Zeppelin or a Rolling Stones, sometimes they will put an album out that doesn't necessarily have any big anthem hits on there, but it doesn't mean it's a bad album. And Presence is the album that was released in 76, and I had to do the first track off of that album, Achilles' Last Stand. Before listening to this song for the first time, I knew Led Zeppelin's influence on hard rock and heavy metal. I mean, that goes without saying, but this was the first time to where I really understood the connection between metal music and Led Zeppelin, because this is like probably the closest they got to like thrash metal or speed metal or something like that. Just really intense, really good fun song. Had to put it on. The next track here I wanted to include, I can thank Stephen King for. Anybody my age will remember that in the 90s, the early 90s, Stephen King actually made a deal with ABC to make miniseries based off some of his bigger books, and at the time it was questioned just why he would do that, because people were normally accustomed to seeing his work on the big screen to where it could get more gory and whatnot, but Stephen King actually wanted the challenge, and when it worked, it really, really worked. For example, is the miniseries It, that had Tim Curry as Pennywise and had an all-star cast with like John Ritter, Harry Anderson working together and all that. That was a good one. But then this, the miniseries I'm talking about that introduced me to this song is The Stand. And if you remember The Stand, it had like Gary Sinise, Molly Ringwald in it, Rob Lowe. It opened up, the very first episode opened up at a military base where everybody was dead. And it was a montage of slowly going over the entire military base and seeing that everybody was dead from something. You had to assume it was like a virus or something like that because of like discoloration on the body. And this song from Blue Oyster Cult, Don't Fear the Reaper, was playing over the entire thing. It was really creepy, but it fit. And that song has one hell of a guitar solo in the middle that I would have been remiss if I did not put this song on my list here. But anyway, let's go on to the next one. This next one I am glad came out in 76 because I'm glad I get to talk about this. It's from Robert Palmer. When people think of Robert Palmer, at least casual music fans, they're probably only going to think of Addicted to Love or Simply Irresistible. Maybe, if they're a little bit older than me, maybe they're going to think about like Some Like It Hot from Power Station because he was the lead vocal in that. That was essentially a couple members of Duran Duran made another band, and he was the lead vocalist for one album. But he actually had been working for a lot longer than that, going back into the 70s. And from the album in question here that I chose, the track I chose was a song called Spanish Moon. And this one has intrigued me for years to the point that I actually took the name Spanish Moon and used it for the name of a building in a story that I wrote. So every time I think of this song, it kind of feels personal in a way. It feels like he made it for me, but I'm glad I get to talk about this too, because like if you are only aware of Robert Palmer by Addicted to Love or Simply Irresistible, you are really, really missing out. He was one hell of a great singer. Definitely go out of your way. If you're going to listen to any artist on here on repeat and just listen to their entire catalog, make sure it's Robert Palmer. You will not regret it. The next one I had to do here is from Queen, A Day at the Races, and it was the song Tie Your Mother Down. Queen, in a lot of ways, was a bit of a schizophrenic band for me. They never really put out an entire album that I liked from start to finish because the music would be all over the place. There would be some tracks I would love and some tracks that just didn't work for me. That didn't mean the tracks in question were bad, of course, but just there was just so much different type of music on the albums that it did kind of make it hard to listen throughout. But when you got a great song, you gotta listen to it here. And Tie Your Mother Down is a pretty straightforward, basic rock song. And when Queen didn't get overly elaborate and just wanted to rock, there was nobody that could really beat them. And this is one of those examples of it. So definitely give that a listen. Last but not least, I had to include this. So much good music in 1976 came out, and so much music that's still kind of inspiring me today. But this band here, AC/DC, off the album High Voltage, I had to include the song It's a Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll. I mean, AC/DC, very, very basic band. Basic in terms of, they're not overly complicated. They're not aficionados or anything like that, but they know how to rock, and it all started with that particular album right there. And think about it too. I mean, how many hard rock or metal albums have bagpipes that rock, so definitely one you want to check out there. But before I choke to death here, I think we'll wrap things up. Remember, folks, to check the show description and check out some of the links in terms of what you can do to potentially help in this fight for abortion rights in this country. As we are aware, Roe versus Wade was overturned in the Supreme Court, which is leading to hell on earth for uterus having people in this country here. So if there's anything you can do to help, hopefully I hope you do take the time to do so. And again, go to the show description. You'll see the links there that you'll need to go. But other than that, each Saturday, we'll have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.